Toronto. My name is John Kyo, and welcome to the Future of Food 10 by 10 academic series. In this series, I talk with 10 professors to get their perspectives on what's happening in the food industry and what they are working on. And in episode number 3 today, I'm delighted to have with me Professor Gary Epler from Harvard Medical School. Hello, Gary.
Hello, John.
How are things in Boston?
Boston's fantastic. It's beautiful, beautiful afternoon here, and I had a wonderful run this morning.
Wonderful. Gary, I'm going to put you on the spot straight away and ask you if you could give us an overview in 1 minute of who you are and the organization you work with.
Sure. I'm Dr. Gary Epler, as John said. I'm over at the Harvard Medical School, and I specialize in lung and critical care medicine. And that led me to nutrition. And that really is the difference between life and death. And from there, I've traveled all over the world teaching and research, and developed the Epler Code, which is 15 science-based elements to live your best life.
That sounds wonderful. So from your perspective, Gary, what do you believe are the key issues that the food industry is dealing with, and their challenges, and how will you focus your professional career around trying to help in that?
The number one single issue in my perspective is health. We need to connect food and health. Always make that food-health connection. In the past, traditionally, it's always been about taste, taste, taste. And then texture came along. And for companies, for restaurants, it's always been about taste and texture. But now, healthy food is popular. And that needs to be considered when you buy foods, make foods, or develop brand new foods.
And so when you look at that, what are the practical interventions that you believe the food industry needs to take to get closer to that health consciousness?
Well, here it is. In my, it's very simple. There's a simple formula. We need, I call it a healthy lifestyle, not a diet. We need to eat foods the right foods in the right amount at the right time, prepared in a healthy manner. The right foods, those are the ones that do not harm us. For example, foods with added sugar, added salt, and processed omega-6 fats are dangerous. They cause inflammation. Inflammation causes almost all of our diseases: heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, strokes, cancer, and it will shorten our lifespan.
And Gary, I'm wondering, what is your perspective on getting a balance between eating meat, and now we have plant-based diets coming along?
Well, that's going back to those healthy foods. As far as meat, chicken, fish, beef, if it is free range, if it's free swimming, it's not harmful. And here's the reason: because it has omega-3 fats. And omega-3 fats are healthy. They're anti-inflammatory. Omega-6 fats, which are found in farm-raised eggs, chickens, fish, are dangerous. They're inflammatory. And because these animals aren't running around and developing muscles and so forth that contain omega-3 fat, they end up with way too much omega-6, and that is dangerous. On the other hand, plant-based burgers, those are really popular in the United States right now. And I looked at the ingredients, and it's getting close. It's getting close. These are plant-based. They have a lot of salt, a lot of sodium, which is too much, but it's counteracted with potassium, which was good. But they're saturated fats. The oils they use are inflammatory oils, the saturated fat oils. And a little change there to omega-3 based oils would make a huge difference.
So you believe that the trend now in plant-based diets is getting us to a better outcome, possibly with healthcare, but that the ingredients in these highly processed vegan foods would need to be adjusted?
Absolutely. You need to read those labels. Some of the vegan foods in the stores and the grocery supermarkets contain a huge amount of salt, of sodium salt, and that causes disease. You line up how much people ingest salt, and compare that to all the diseases, those heart disease and everything, and there's a straight line. The more salt that intake, the more disease develops. And so you need to read those labels. And number one is the salt, and some of them even have sugar added. And there's no reason to add sugar in these foods. And it's the added sugar, added salt, that is the danger.
Gary, if I can circle back, you mentioned that certain foods are inflammatory and can cause a lot of the ailments that we have today. Can you dive a little bit deeper into the inflammatory, the rationale behind that, the types of food, just in relatively simple layman's terms so we can understand it?
Sure, this is where the science comes in, and this is where it's phenomenal. Scientists have worked on these things. And the added sugar causes, well, a glucose spike, spike in the blood sugar shoots up, and then the insulin comes out, but it overshoots. And the blood sugar starts going down, but the insulin triggers cortisol release. And cortisol, is certainly over a chronic time, causes the inflammation, which causes the disease that we talked about.
Wonderful. So if you were giving advice to the average household in Canada or US, what would you give them guidance on right now with regard to getting a balance in their diet?
Well, as I said, my lifestyle, nutrition's a lifestyle, not a diet. Diets are probably the biggest cause of weight gain around because they all work at first, but 3 to 5 years later, our set point's been changed and people gain another 10, 20, 30 pounds. Again, eat the right foods that do not cause harm and inflammation in the right amount, which is not very much in no seconds, and prepared in a healthy manner, and that's basically no fried foods.
Do you think we can get enough nutritional content from our food, or do we need to supplement?
Oh, I don't think we need to supplement. I certainly don't need vitamins. The only one is omega-3. In the United States, and I think it's probably the same in Canada, our omega-6, omega-3 ratio is way, way too high. It's naturally occurring to have omega-6, omega-3 in our body. Omega-6 is good. It helps us with certain things. But too much is inflammatory. Should be around 1 to 1 or maybe 3 to 1. But we have 26 omega-6s to every omega-3. That's way too much. And we can fix it with our diet, but may need to have supplemental omega-3 tablets. That would be the only one I can think of.
And Gary, if you were talking to a group of vegans or vegetarians, what guidance would you give them with regard to their diet? Are they missing something? Do they have too much of something?
The main thing is read the labels and avoid foods with this added salt, added sugar. It's really dangerous, that added sugar. Again, there's plenty of sugar in everything. There's plenty of sodium salt. And then processed foods, if they're processed too much, they have too much omega-6. That would be the first thing, read the labels. And the other thing is protein. You need to get sufficient protein. Without it, there's going to be allergies. There's going to be a decreased immune system. And these things are not good. You need to make sure there's enough protein.
And of course, protein is not all the same. So you have animal-based protein, you have plant-based protein. I think they metabolize differently in your body, right?
That's correct. Yes, as far as proteins go, I tell you, the milk has the best proteins. But milk, I wouldn't advise adults drinking milk. Infants, well, not infants, but kids, milk is great. But other proteins are good, and we need to research which ones are best. As far as plant-based, there's pea-based and there's chickpea-based and so forth. And you just analyze these, find out what the chemical substances are, and find that the best one.
Now, Gary, in about 30 seconds or so, what is the headlines in your book? You have the Epler code. What is that all about?
Well, that's all about 15 elements to live your best life, and one of them is nutrition, and we talked about that. And the other is 8 hours of sleep, 1 hour of exercise. Have meaning in your life, and have a high level of happiness.
Wonderful. And you have a book on that, right?
Oh yes, Alive with Life.
Alive with Life, fantastic. Gary, in the last 30 seconds, if you were up in front of 50 new academics, which you are on a regular basis, what advice would you give them in starting their scholarly journey, especially the ones that are dealing in food science?
Well, John, the best research is going to be develop, create, and popularize foods concerning health. Every time you develop or look at a food, what are its health effects? And let's get the best health effects in foods that do not harm people.
Wonderful. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We had it firsthand in a broad range of topics from Professor Gary Epler from Harvard Medical School. And Gary, I'd like to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Well, John, it's great to see you.